But welcome to tonight's Life Lab session. Again, this is our spring cleaning for the soul series. And last week, we talked about the hidden mess and we confronted some of it, right? And listen, if you missed it, again, we do record. Make sure that you go back. You can actually go into the recorded space. I have all the recorded videos space, and you could go in there, and it's a library and you can watch all the videos and get caught up. You don't want to miss it. If you were there last week, you probably started decluttering. I hope you started decluttering, not just corners of your house, which we all need to do that. There's a corner right here on my desk that's off camera that needs some work, but it's not just the clutter in our house. It's also the clutter that's in our hearts, you know, emotional clutter, spiritual clutter, physical and relational. And a lot of times we don't look at relationship clutter as clutter until you really think about it. You've heard people say things like, you know, you need to prune the tree of your life. Sometimes certain people are just hanging on. If you've ever had to prune a tree and some of the leaves are just dried up and need to be cut off, but we're just trying to hang on to it because if we cut off all the leaves, we won't have any leaves at all. And some of those dead leaves are actually sucking the life out of the plant. That's that relational clutter that we need to get rid of. So anyway, don't want to stay on that for too long. I definitely do want you to check it out if you missed it, and make sure that, listen, ladies, we can't continue to carry baggage from season to season to season. It's just no longer fitting, right? Sisters, sissies. So let's get busy clearing out the clutter and feeling good about it. You're not doing it alone. You're doing it with your sisters here, right? And so it's kind of like a great time to do it. You're empowered, you're connected, you're anchored, and now you can actually make really good, solid decisions for your life that will take you into the next season powerfully. Tonight, we are going to deal with our light. Our light. Where did your light go? Right? And how are we going to protect it? And the thing that we need to understand is that what makes you shine literally is your authenticity. And doing this work for as long as I have been doing it, I feel like the main thing that people struggle with is embracing themselves. You know, we have created so many mental constructs about ourselves. We've created, other people have helped us create them, whatever. We're walking around with all these mental constructs and we feel judged and we feel less than, and we feel all these things. And when I start to examine, it's you, the person who feels that is holding you hostage to the opinions of yourself. You're not good enough. You're, comparing. And that's why tonight we are coming for the head. I'm going to do this. We're coming for the head of comparisons. That nasty comparison trap. And it is the thing that, from my perspective, binds the most mouths, hands, and feet. And we know that we are the mouth, the hands, and the feet of the Lord. When we're available, we're the ones. It's not like Jesus is coming off the throne and God is resting. He's not coming off the throne. He did his work. He said, now you go. You're the one that needs to talk. You're the one that needs your hands. You're the one with the feet. But if our mouth, our hands, our feet are bound, we're useless. So if you're ready for that, let's get into it. I want you to tear up the chat. Let me know if you're ready. Drop some fire bombs in the chat so that I know that you're breathing, and we're going to get into it. So I hope you brought some water. I need to do better at drinking water because my throat gets dry during this. So y'all just don't mind me if I need to pause for a minute. Okay. Like that. But if you brought snacks, dig into your snacks. If you brought water, sip your sip. Do what you got to do. Get comfortable, because we're about to get into your business about these comparisons. Okay. So let me take you down memory lane a little bit. I started thinking about this. I don't know why I'm so excited about this analogy, but do you remember being a kid, teenager, or even adults? We do this, but you go to the fair, and you step inside of the glass house, like the house of mirrors is what they would call it, the house of mirrors. Do you remember that? And some of them are scary, I know that, but I'm talking about a basic house of mirrors. When you get inside there, suddenly you're like just surrounded by all these mirrors everywhere. And you just see your reflection everywhere you go. I think they only let one person go in at a time. And once you get inside, it's just reflections of you, every single angle. Now, anybody in here who's an angle girl, and you know your angles, and you know how to take those pictures, right? The house of mirrors is unforgiving. Okay, can I get a high five or an amen in the chat? It's unforgiving. There's no angle that's going to be hidden. You see the whole reflection, right? But have you ever noticed that some of the reflections are stretched, like really tall? Some of them are crazy wide. Some of them are shrunken, and you just look completely unrecognizable, right? And also, depending on how far or close you are to the mirror, it determines what you're perceiving, because it is perception, right? We know it's not reality. But depending on how close and far, like you can move and maneuver yourself in a certain kind of way to try to get something to look right. But depending on how close or far you are, you look crazy. None of them show the real you, not even one of them, right? And that's literally what happens when we live our lives based on comparison. Comparison, it robs us both literally and figuratively blind. Literally and figuratively, it robs you blind, because essentially what it's doing is it's taking away a clear perspective of your purpose and your value. It's distorting your perspective. So now when you had a certain idea about yourself, it's distorted, and here comes the trouble. Because if we're not careful, everywhere we look, we'll see this distorted version of ourselves. And we'll begin to literally measure our bodies, our marriage, successes and failures, our worth, whatever it is, against someone else's highlight reels. You know what I'm saying? Like someone else's highlights, because there's no way in comparison that you are going to see the depth and the totality of anybody's life. No, you're not living other people's life in 4D. It's interesting. Somebody rented my house and did a party once, and they sent a drone over my house, and they were like filming all these different angles. And I was sitting there thinking, wow, this looks amazing. If only I lived my real life in 4D or in aerial view. But the reality is I live my life at this desk in my bed. Very normal. But that's not what you see in the highlight reels. Are you following me? And before you know it, you're stuck. And you're literally fixated on false reflections and unable to see your own beauty, your own value, your own purpose or destiny. Come on now. I need y'all to put some snaps, do some high fives if I'm talking right. So tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to step out of the house of mirrors, okay? Because comparison is one of the fastest ways to just lose your light. And we need to figure out, how do I protect my light in a world that is just, everybody's light is just shining so bright. Like, people are living their lives with high beams on. They don't even have the courtesy to dim the light. Not that we should be dimming our light, but you get what I'm saying? Like high beams. And we're just like, whoa, stop it. We need to move away from comparisons. And the only way to shine fully is to literally break away from the grip of comparisons. Okay. And more now than ever, like, going to the, what I said about highlight reels is, this is the comparison error. excuse me, this is the comparison era. And literally people are struggling. Like people are struggling with depression and literally all kinds of different forms of anxiety, all due to this ugly thing called comparison. I mean, you're hearing all about it. People just, depressed if they miss a post on social media, or, full of anxiety, just watching and doing all these things. I hear it all the time. Okay. So get your pen and paper out. And I hope you did come with pen and paper. Allergies, forgive me, y'all. I hope you came with pen and paper because I want to give you a key scripture. All right. So write this down. Matthew 5:16. Matthew 5:16. Let your light shine before others. So simple. Let your light shine before others. All right. And here's the question. Be honest. Like, let's get free. Let's get free. Be honest in the chat. Have you ever looked at someone else's life and felt like yours wasn't enough in comparison? Let's be real. Come on with it. Have you ever looked over there and said, well, dang, and got mad at your spouse or got mad at somebody or yourself because you felt like now you're not enough? Okay. Go ahead and hit up the chat. Comparison is dangerous because it doesn't just make you crave more. Matter of fact, that's called inspiration. Like when you want more, this is something Hassani and I would do a lot when we were younger, is we would go for a drive. Drink and drive is what we called them. And we would get our coffee and we would just drive through like really beautiful neighborhoods. And we would just look at these houses and we would just dream, like one day we want this kind of house and we want to have this and that and a third. And that was us dreaming, right? But comparison doesn't do that. It doesn't make you crave more or desire to do more. It is like, it literally convinces us that what we already have isn't enough. That's crazy. It literally breeds discontent and it steals our heart of gratitude. And we know how important gratitude is. Like here in this community, gratitude is key. It keeps us in this scarcity mindset. Like, this is not enough. You think about it. You know what it makes me think of? It makes me think of like prisoners in the lunch line. You know how like the prisoners, they might have a tray and they got to get their portion put on their lunch tray. And it's like you're holding out the tray, but while you're getting your meal or your ration, you're over here looking at everybody else's portion and what the lunch lady is, flopping on their tray to make sure that nobody gets more than you. That's what comparison does. Like, instead of focusing on your own tray and making sure you got your cornbread and making sure that you got your beans and your meat or whatever is on your tray, you over here looking to the left and the right and worried about what's on somebody else's tray. That's what comparison does. And it tells us lies and it makes us question our own worth, the blessings that God has already given us, and why we were placed in the world. So I want to give you a couple of ways that this shows up so that you can identify it. And it shows up in lots of ways, but I think it shows up in two main ways. And the first way is something that we're very familiar of. All of us have heard this before. Many times people have talked about it, preached about it, and written books about it. And it's the I'm not enough lie. The I'm not enough lie. Okay. So you see someone else and immediately feel like I'm falling short. And maybe it's their confidence, or their marriage or their business, or how they just seem to have it all together from your perspective. And suddenly everything about your life feels small. It feels incomplete. It feels inadequate. The I'm not enough lie. Okay, excuse me. And then number two, and like I said, there are many, but this is pretty common. It's the they have it all lie. They have it all, And you literally start measuring your worth by someone else's blessings, right? So instead of, somebody else's blessing being a blessing to you, like I'm next, what ends up happening, and this is not intentional. This is just, if this is where you're at, this is where you're at. That they have it all lie is you start measuring and counting your blessings. When's my ship coming in? You wonder why your husband seems, or their husband seems way more romantic than yours, or why their body just snapped back after having kids, but you got these thunder thighs. You know what I mean? Or whatever, like however you're seeing other people, maybe there's somebody that just seems like everything they do, they're just winning. And you feel like you're struggling. And this is kind of like a snowball. And it has you to the place where you start feeling like you're behind, or you're never going to make it to wherever God has promised you that you're going to be. And you begin to feel like you're just in this race. You're racing. Who are you racing? Who put you in the race? Who gave you the number, the badge, lined you up and put you in a race with all these imaginary people, or people that you invited in your imaginary race and they don't even know that you're their competitor? Go ahead and raise your little emoji hand if you know the mirror is lying to you. Okay? And I need you to know that you're not alone. Everybody goes through these things at times. It's about being able to catch those things and check yourself. We're talking about spring cleaning of the soul. And if there's little residues of this, that, and the third in your soul, in your heart, this is how you're moving. And we have to be able to recognize that so that we can let go of these things. And believe me, nobody chooses this. Like, this is on you. If it's on you and you feel it, or somebody who's dealing with this right now. Some of y'all are thinking like, man, it ain't me, but I know somebody who I'm dealing with that right now. And I'm always trying to encourage them. It's okay. Stop comparing yourself to me. Because we all know, and we've all been there, we all know what it looks like on the outside. It looks great. Everybody knows how to make it look great. Everybody knows how to paint a picture, right? But seasons in your life where you were living a fairy tale image that wasn't the reality. We all have been there. And we've all also in those positions, when we're in those positions, we can tend to look at other people and say, wow, I'm over here living this lie. And they seem like they just got it all together. Why can't my situation be like that? What you're seeing is a distorted perspective that's creating a false reality. And when you focus on half the story, which is the only thing that you can do, because you don't know the whole story, as I was saying earlier, like you can't see the depth of anybody's story. They talk about the grass is greener on the other side. And the truth is the grass is greener where you water it, right? But when you're focusing on half the story, you lose sight of this uniqueness that God placed on the inside of you. This is the part that gets me so excited. When you get it, when you get how absolutely amazing you are and how incredibly unique, authentic, and antique. What's more valuable than antique? You're antique because your soul is ancient. You are a rare commodity. But if you don't know that you're a rare commodity, you won't treat yourself like you're a rare commodity. You'll treat yourself like you're everybody else, and you're not. Your job is to discover and embrace who and how God made you and who He designed you to be, so that you can step into that place fearfully and wonderfully. Question, because I like questions and I want you to blow up the chat. I want you to think about an error in your life where comparison had literally stolen your joy. Okay. I want you to think about, what was the false reflection? Okay. What were you believing that now you can sit back and say, that wasn't it? And you know what just hit me? You might be comparing yourself to your old self. You might be comparing yourself to your old self. Hold on. Let me just go ahead and put some money in my own collection plate. Has anybody ever compared themselves to their old self? If I could only go back, if I could only be that person again, if I could only live these years again, if I could only, appreciate, you know what? First of all, we're all guilty. And I'm going to prove it to you right now. We're all guilty. Everybody on this live is guilty, because everybody in here, I'm sure, I'm about 99.999% sure, has had the moment where you looked at a picture of yourself 10 years earlier and you looked at yourself and said, man, I can't believe I was complaining about the size I was in that picture. If I could only go back to that picture, I would be so happy. But you couldn't appreciate it then because of your comparisons. Oh, you were size 8 then, but you needed to be a size 6. Or you were size 6, but you needed to be a size 4. Am I talking good? Go ahead and hit that chat. Hit that chat and free your soul. Go ahead and confess your mess, because we all have it. And here's something, because I want to talk about how we break free from this. Actually, breaking free from comparison is amazing, and it's really exciting. Let me just confess my mess real quick, because one big comparison that I had growing up, this is so acutely, I'm so acutely aware of this. And even to this day, it's something that will bring tears to my eyes, but in a different manner. So when I was a kid, of course, my father was absent. But I had my father living with me up until I was 9 years old, but it was very toxic. So those of you who have been through Unearth, you know my story. That being said, when my mother parted and he was no longer in my life on a regular basis, every time I would see a father and his daughter out in the world, sitting on a park bench, having lunch together, walking down the street, I would just be so envious. Why isn't that my life? Why can't I have my father? All the things. And even to this day, when I see that, and actually it could be a father and his daughter, or a mother and her daughter, when I see them connecting, it brings joy to my heart. I love to see it. Because at some point you have to recognize that your story is a journey. It is every moment that we're living is a page in the chapter of the book of you. And somehow, you read a book, a good book too, you're writing the best book ever. But in the middle of the book, you're it's exciting and it's got you drawn in and you're just wondering what's around the corner. And a really good book has an amazing ending. It brings it all together and you're oh my God, I get it. That was the best book ever. When you recognize these things and you start to realize what's going on and what the purpose is, you can begin to shift your mindset. But before we talk about breaking free, because we're going to talk about that, because breaking free is actually fun and it allows you to stretch and grow, which is painful. Think about working out, but the results are amazing. And after every workout, you always feel eureka, right? But I want to tell you about Narcissus. Have you ever heard of Narcissus? In Greek mythology, Narcissus was known for his beauty. Okay, so this is a mythological character, Greek mythology, but his name was Narcissus. It's starting to sound familiar. He was known for his beauty, and one day he came across a pool of water and saw his own reflection. And he was so mesmerized that he couldn't look away. Okay, and that's because, or what basically happened was that because he was so obsessed with his image, his self, right? So obsessed, so much that he literally wasted away staring at his own reflection until he basically turned into a flower. Okay, that's the story of Narcissus. And his story is where we get the word narcissist, or the idea of narcissism, which is literally a deep obsession with your self-image and so many other things around yourself. Okay, but that's where we get narcissism from. So that's the comparison trap, you know. It literally, it's the same thing. It happens in the same way. Instead of living fully, we waste time staring at a reflection, who we think we should be, what we wish we had, how we measure up to others, you know, and we can become fixated on this false image. And in doing so, we risk losing everything, losing ourselves. And if you take Narcissus, for example, right, he was already known for his beauty. Think about that. He was already known for his beauty. He had been taught this somehow, right? So this was him staring at himself and looking at an ideal. He was the ideal, and he's staring at himself. Yet in obsessing over his own reflection, he became stuck and unable to look away and do anything else. And even think about the Wicked Witch, who was the queen, right? From the Snow White fairy tale. Every day, this lady stood before her enchanted mirror and asked what? Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? And remember, literally every day, the mirror would answer her back saying it was her. You are, something like, you are the fairest one of them all. Queen, you know this, right? Until one day, the answer was, sorry to tell you, sis, but Snow White, she is the fairest one of age. When Snow White became of age, suddenly she was the fairest one of all. And so the queen, who was obsessed with herself, right? Excuse me, suddenly the validation that she had relied on for so long was gone, and jealousy consumed her. And that's when she became obsessed with eliminating the competition, which was Snow White. We all know how the story goes. But you know what's not talked about? And I just think it's so interesting. What's not talked about is, think about Snow White's life. It wasn't exactly something I would envy. The chick was living in the forest. She was talking to animals and elves, waiting for a prince to rescue her. Where were her parents? Where was her family? You know what I'm saying? Like, where was any stability? This chick did not have the best life. Number one, and she's just frolicking around. She might have had some mental issues. You know, la, 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 you know? She wasn't really balanced. Yet the queen was so blinded by the comparison, because she's focused on the outward, the look. She's the competition, that she failed to see the full picture, that there is nothing desirable about Snow White's life. That's what comparison does to us. That's what comparison does to us. It literally distorts our reality. And it literally makes us chase illusions while ignoring the blessing of our own lives. Sila, come on, give me some love in the chat. Give me some love in the chat. So I think this is a good question moment, right? I want to know at this point how many realize that it's time to stop looking at the distorted reflection and start seeing ourselves clearly, and seeing ourselves clearly is seeing ourselves the way God sees us. That's how we see ourselves clearly. If we are seeing ourselves through the lens of Hollywood, through the lens of social media, reels and moments and all those things, if we're seeing ourselves through the lenses of other people's opinions and we are not fact checking who we are based on what is said in the word about who we are amiss. There's so much more to us than the external. And if we're focused on the external, we literally hold the internal hostage to growth. So, pens and paper. Let me check my time. Okay, I'm good. How do we break free? How do we break free? Write that on your paper. All right. How do we break free? Number one, know your true reflection. Now you say, where do I go with that? Where do you get that information? The true reflection. Listen, this is the thing, because I talk about this a lot about, how we see ourselves on the outside. A lot of times people, they only see the external, but there's a whole other version of us that maybe we know exists, but people approach you and they see the external, right? Even sometimes we don't really know who we are. Like, people will tell us things like, oh my God, you're this, you're so that, or I love your art, you're so talented, or oh my gosh, you did this, or you created that, or you said this, whatever the case. And we're just like, oh, that little thing, right? We don't even know our value. So the only mirror that tells the truth is God's word. Everything else, social media, opinions, unrealistic expectations that we can put on ourselves, it's unreliable. And you've heard this before. Here's a great scripture, Psalms 139:14. It says, I praise you because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. I probably use this in every class. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. That's the truth. If you want to know what your reflection is, you got to go to the one who created the reflection. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. That is truth. Okay? Number two is, please recognize the filters. I thought that was pretty witty. The filters, because good and well, a lot of stuff that you're seeing on TV and online, it's filtered. They had a whole expose in People magazine a few years ago, where they were showing some of the top celebrities and their like bodies and everything like that. And what they were doing, this was wrong, but what they were doing is they were showing the unfiltered, unedited version. They still look amazing now, don't get it twisted. But then they showed the filtered, and it was just like, where'd those hips come from? Where'd those thighs come from? Where'd the mark go? Where'd the tattoo go? How did it move slightly to the left? Recognize the filters. Social media, it's not real life. The perfectly posed family photo doesn't show the argument that happened just 10 minutes before. And whatever somebody's curating on their feed doesn't reflect the full story. It's just the highlights. Stop comparing your behind the scenes to someone else's edited, highlighted reel. Your behind the scenes is where the work gets done. People are always like, man, you're so lucky, you did this, you did that. People say this to folks who've accomplished things, but they don't know what it took to get there. They don't know about the sleepless nights. They don't know about the tears that were cried, the prayers that were prayed. They don't know about that. All they know is you arrived. There's no such thing as arrivals without a journey. There's a journey that takes you to every arrival. Imagine if you could just, maybe one day you'll click your heels and be somewhere, or maybe one day we can walk through a portal and try time travel. But until then, there's a journey before your arrival. So we need to just stop with the comparisons. And then number 3, this is the best one. This is the best one. Stay in your own lane, y'all. Stay in your own lane. It's a beautiful lane. No one's ever seen that lane before. It's your job to carve out a lane no one's ever seen before. Your journey is yours. No one else has your path. Your purpose, it is the light that you're trying to protect. And the fastest way to lose your light is to chase someone else's. And we don't need another, it was funny. This was last year, maybe a couple years ago, actually, by this time, but me and Hassani went out on a date, and we went to this comedy thing, and it was just a whole bunch of different people. I think it was open mic, and somebody literally was like doing the Tyler Perry Medea act. And we were like, it wasn't like, we don't need another Medea. Tyler Perry's got that unlocked. It was literally, had the same outfit, same wig, doing the same thing. Like, we don't need another Tyler Perry. We don't need another Medea. It wasn't landing because that wasn't his. It wasn't him. I'm sure there was something authentic he needed to do. It wasn't that. You have got to fall in love with the God in you. You've got to fall in love with the God in you. I was going to say with the light in you, because we're talking about protecting our light. But no, the light is God. God is the light. And you need to protect it. And you need to protect the God that's in you and fall in love with it. We cannot continue to allow external forces, perspectives, comparisons to rob us and to have us dead in the mud, stuck in the mud, waiting to be something that we already are. I have a declaration for you if you want to repeat it with me. I know I'm not going to be able to hear you, but I do want you to say it out loud, okay? So we're going to count to 3, and everyone under the sound of my voice, okay, is going to repeat this with me. So get up, sit up, rinse down the snack, whatever you were munching on, and get ready. Here's what you're going to declare. I refuse to let comparison steal my joy. I will not waste my time on false reflections. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Hit up that chat. Let's get some snaps. Let's get some claps. Let's get some girls in the red dresses. Let's go. And I want you to take on a new rule, okay? If this is already your rule, amazing, fantastic, okay? New rule. Celebrate others, don't try to be others. New rule. Celebrate others, don't try to be others. We are so quick to abort our mission when we hear or see someone else doing something their way, right? So it's just like, I mean, even depending, and this goes back to your circle. This goes back to last week when it comes to us, actually decluttering some of our relationships, because sometimes we are in relationship with people that try to sow seeds of comparison and discord by saying, oh, you're still doing it like that. No, there's a new way. Oh, you don't. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe that's why it's not kicking off, because you're doing this when everyone else out here is doing that. Meanwhile, that person ain't doing nothing but having opinions. Girl, stop. Your way and your method is what makes you a maverick. Your way of doing all the things, your way of cooking, your way of cleaning, your way of talking, your way of exhorting, hugging, being a friend, being a sister, whatever it is. You can grow into the skills of things, of course, but it's still going to be your way. There's a way you walk. Please don't try to walk like somebody else because you think that they have a better soiree than you. You're going to look really weird. Embrace your walk. Okay? From now on, I want you to say, when you hear things, I want you to defend yourself against comparison because that's quick to happen. You know, we need to interject. Like when our mind starts going somewhere, we interject with other thoughts or by speaking, or we can do a lot of things. We can put music on, whatever. But here's what you do when something's introduced to you that might trigger this desire to compare, like, oh, let me look at me. Oh, am I getting this? No. Instead, say, I'm so happy about that for you. Write it down. These are your new rules. You're going to celebrate others, not try to be others. And you're going to tell people, I'm so happy about that for you. Okay? How does that sound? Just say it. How does that sound rolling off your tongue? I'm so happy about that for you. I love that. You've got to protect your flame, ladies. No one else can do it for you. Here's another powerful scripture. Actually, no, I'm going to save that for later. Sorry. So, last couple of things I want to say. And that is, I think about out at night when you need to light a fire. If anybody's ever had to light a bonfire, if you've ever had to light a fire pit, you know, there's a little bit of a science behind it, but if the wind is blowing, you got to do a lot. I wish I had a lighter. You got to do a lot to keep the flame alive. You know, if the wind's blowing, if you ever lit a match and the wind keeps blowing, it keeps blowing out the match. So this is how you protect it. You're so careful protecting your light, right? The wind is blowing and the light is flickering, and you know you got to keep it alive. You can't cover it because you'll suffocate it. You got to make sure it has oxygen, but you want to keep the wind from literally blowing the flame out, right? This is how you need to cover and protect your light. You're not going to let any crazy person, any crazy opinions blow your flame out. In real life, we need to set boundaries, right? And boundaries are our wind blockers. Boundaries are the wind blockers. You're right. I've got to protect my light. I was saying this to Hassani. I was talking to him about just the empowering energy that comes with actually knowing who you are. You know, many of us live our whole lives and we never really understood ourselves. And then once you get into the understanding, you can actually reintroduce yourself to people and say, hello, my name is, let me reintroduce myself to you. These are my boundaries, okay? Because I need to protect my light. Boundaries. Stop with the overcommitting. And stop apologizing for needing space and saying no. No is a powerful word. You don't have to say no nasty. That's why they created no thank you. So you can say no and thank you. No gracias. However you want to say it. Also, you know what? Rest. Rest is a powerful way to keep the air flowing in your flame or in your light, whatever you want to call it. Oxygen. You need to rest. Prioritize stillness. Prioritize quiet time. Prioritize time like this to get poured into with other women. This is what's going to get joy flowing through your life. Make sure that you sleep and sleep well. That's going to keep you glowing from the inside out. Literally, everything spiritually connects to the physical. That sleep gives you that beauty rest, right? One hand feeds the other. And joy is your fuel. It's going to be the thing that keeps that fire burning brightly. Because whatever it is that you're stepping into, right? I didn't get specific tonight about what these things are that you're needing to step into. But just know that whatever it is that you need to step into will be a challenge, but you will have joy when you're doing this out of your own authenticity. You can't have joy if you are just a replica of something else and someone else that was not designed for you. That creates more frustration, more disappointment, more heartbreak because you're trying to fit into a mold that wasn't shaped or developed for you. So it's that joy that you really want. That's the joy that gets you up every day doing the hard things because it's what you're supposed to do. Okay? So let's hit the chat up one last time. We're wrapping up. I want you to just share with your sisters in this group what's one thing you can stop doing this week that is potentially dimming your light. One thing that you can potentially do this week that has been dimming your light. Okay? We're going to let some things go every time we come into this group. And also, I want you to know, this is really important too. I don't want to forget this point. And that is that your light isn't just for you. I mean, we know this. You stepping into your authenticity is not for you. Isn't that ironic? It's like I'm stepping into my authentic self and being myself, being me. It's me stepping into my mold, but it's not for me. It's for the use. It's to be available. And if we keep shrinking and downplaying and dimming our light, we're not available. You know, I think a lot of times oh my God, it makes me think about my poor mom. Rest in peace, mama. But it used to drive me crazy. Some of you have heard this, that my mom would always get out of everybody's way. I don't really know where she picked that up from, but I noticed that as a kid. You know, if we were walking down the street, she would just jump out of everybody's way. She would snatch us out of the way. I'd be like, well, we were walking on the street too, Mom, you know. Or if we're in a supermarket and carts are going down the aisle, she was moving herself out of the way. She was always moving out of everybody's way. And that used to drive me crazy. And I was just like, I will not be moving out of everybody's way when I grow up. But do you see what I'm saying? Sometimes we don't want to make others feel uncomfortable. And so instead, we shrink. Or we might have believed lies that, you know, it's selfish of me to stand proud and beam my light. I don't want other people to feel uncomfortable with my light. You know, we're waiting for someone else to affirm that it's okay to be radiant. But no, ma'am. The world needs you lit all the way up, turned all the way up. You know what I hear all the time too? I hear a lot of women who feel like they're extra or they're too much. You know, I'm too much. People, this. The world needs you lit all the way up. There's a place for you. Just like there's a place for the meek. Your marriage needs you at your brightest. Your family needs you. Your purpose, your legacy, all of it needs you. And it needs you fully awake and alive and standing in your greatness and not comparing to anybody else's greatness. Your greatness does not supersede anybody else's greatness. Yours is yours. It's your lot. Rep it. Represent it. Okay? So I just wanted to wrap up with this amazing poem that I love. It's by Marianne Williamson, and it's called The Deepest Fear. So I'm going to read this to you, and you could just close your eyes while I read it to you. Hold on. Let me get it up. Okay. I want you to let this sink into your soul, because I've already done the work. The soil, the fallow ground is broken. Your heart is open. So receive these words, okay? Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not just in some of us, it is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Did that land? Did that land? Hit the chat up if that landed. That is beautifully stated. So that scripture that I said I was going to leave for later, it's Galatians 6:4. And it says, pay careful attention to your own work, for then you will get the satisfaction of a job well done. And you won't need to compare yourself to anyone else. Can you believe that's right there in the good old book, that ancient book? Your light, your glow, your fire, your flame, whatever you want to call it, it comes from walking confidently in who God created you to be. And as soon as you stop looking at others and, using that measuring stick, you finally have the space that you need to literally celebrate your journey. Nobody on the planet shines like you. No one carries what you carry. And no one is created to walk the path you're created to walk. So let's stop wasting time. Why waste another second trying to fit into someone else's distorted mirror when you were meant to live a life chasing your own perspective and your own reflection? Okay. So with that, ladies, I love you so much. I hope you enjoyed tonight's Life Lab. Share it with your sisters. You are able to share it with your sisters. Everyone needs to hear this so that we can move forward. Spring cleaning. Love you guys. See you later.